as a former gold bug, as someone who promoted the investment in gold, as someone who, put my own money and wealth and put it into gold for a number of years, from 2009 all the way up until 2020 at a significant gold position, I want to walk you through exactly why Bitcoin is a better alternative to gold and is a better investment to gold. And then you can make your own decision up. But at least this is my impersonation of how gold bugs are waiting around for gold price to gold to reprice the US dollar. This is what Robert Kiyosaki and all these other gold promoters told you was going to happen. Gold's suddenly going to reprice itself, and you're gonna get super wealthy. What if you die before you get wealthy when it comes to gold? Right? That's the problem. There are fundamental flaws with gold that I want to cover here that I think everyone needs to be aware of. Then, if you want to have gold in your portfolio, it's totally up to you. Gold isn't as limited as is presented to you. Gold also doesn't reprice as often as is presented to you. And I want to break down some of these things that you can understand and then decide, okay, do I want to continue holding my gold position and waiting? Gold is touted as a rare, limited asset. And the reality is that how we measure hard assets is something called stock to flow. Now, a lot of people, if you've been looking around the Bitcoin space at all, then you're going to remember the stock to flow pricing model. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the concept of stock to flow. Basically, what it means is how many years of new flow of a particular asset does it take to replace all of the on-ground supply, stock to flow. And the longer it takes to replace all of the on-ground supply, the harder the asset is, right? And so for gold, it takes somewhere between 55 and 65 years to replace all of the on-ground supply with the new flow coming out on a yearly basis. Now, how is this affected? How is this actually controlled? There's several ways that it's affected and controlled. Number one, you have mining permits, right? So countries might say, we're going to hand out mining permits for more gold exploration, okay? That's number one. Number two is the price of gold. If the price of gold goes up, more attention goes into digging gold out of the ground, right? Because if the price of gold went up to $10,000, I wouldn't be wearing that ring. I'd be like, hey, take that ring and get me some Bitcoin. So the gold has turned into this idea that because central banks had a minority percentage, right? It was 40% that the US dollar was backed by gold, that's the currency that we need to step back into. And humanity has this weird virus where we think going backwards will allow us to go forwards faster, and that's not how it works. The point of gold is that it is limited, cannot be controlled by human beings, it is controlled by nature. And gold bugs were presenting the idea that we've hit peak gold, etc., etc. All of these little conspiracy theories about gold, like have we hit peak gold? It's just something that's being developed by Mother Nature, and everyone's talking about, is it peak gold? This is put out there to continue the interest in ownership of gold. Because imagine if you found out that there is no such thing as peak gold, right? It's just this year we might have less coming out the ground, next year we might have more. There's no such thing as peak gold. You wouldn't be interested in owning gold. So all of the rhetoric is pushed out there saying, okay, you need to own gold because it's limited, we've hit peak gold, etc., etc. And this is just not true, because more and more gold keeps getting discovered. I think Uganda, they discovered tons of gold in Uganda, and gold just keeps being discovered. And as the price goes up, the incentives for discovering and digging more gold out the ground goes up because there's more profit to be made. Let's say you're investing in gold for your children's future. You've literally been losing value every single year holding gold. Literally losing value. Your price hasn't even appreciated because the long-term CAGR on gold, the last year is great, so everyone's telling you get into gold, it's 15%, that's great. But the 10-year CAGR on gold is like 4%. It's like 4%, hasn't even beaten inflation, let alone debasement. Debasement to me is the real enemy. The real enemy is the amount of dollars that have been printed, not the manipulated inflation figures that they put out there. And gold's value in terms of the amount of money that has been printed is down here, right? We're at 1999 level lows approximately in terms of actual value of dollars printed, gold based on the amount of dollars that have been printed. Is this what you want for your wealth? If you're trying to protect your children, you're trying to protect your future, you're trying to protect the value of everything that you've built, what you want is something that's scarce, that regularly is going to keep going up and maintaining the value against the amount of dollars that have been printed. You don't want something that's going to take 75 years because you might be dead by the time those 75 years show up. In fact, Charles Schwab's latest data and their investment reports that are coming out now are showing that this new generation doesn't care about gold. It's reducing the percent. Gold is already roughly like 2% of portfolios. That's coming down as $60 trillion is moving from parents to children, grandparents to children. It's moving because young people understand that gold is not the asset that they were promised it to be. You might have a little bit of gold in your portfolio to feel good. It might be a bearer instrument, but is something really a bearer instrument if you can't take more than $10,000 of it over a border? Because if you've taken a flight, you got to fill out that form. Do you have more than $10,000 of cash or cash equivalents? And gold is one of them. If you do, you got to declare it, and then it's their choice, right? Whereas with Bitcoin, I can take that over with no issues, right? Got zero issues. Bitcoin is everywhere and nowhere at the exact same time, unlike gold. So my point here is to wake up the gold bugs and release you from the people that have captured you into thinking that the world is terrible, gold is the only thing that can protect you, and that gold is something that has a finite supply to it. Not only does it not have a finite supply, the supply is completely affected by the demand for it, which is completely not what it has been promised to be. Therefore, gold, it is, if I'm a miner, it is my incentive to get together with other miners and figure out how to manipulate the price of gold to keep sales high enough while we dig this out of the ground. Therefore, there will never be the supply shock that anyone is talking about because the supply is infinite. The supply is infinite. Whereas with Bitcoin, you know exactly every 10 minutes, exactly where the Bitcoin came out, where it went to, and which address it's sitting on. You know that can never be changed. And you know that if you need to move that Bitcoin, you can do it in an instant. This is why Bitcoin is becoming the base layer asset, which is what gold played a role as. Gold played a role in the past as a base layer asset upon which everything was built on. Bitcoin is that, because if you can imagine, let's say there are 30 central banks in the world and they all transact on Bitcoin as like they did with gold. They move Bitcoin from here to there. There's finality of settlement. There's none of this, we'll secure the Bank of England gold in Fort Knox, and then when we want it, they're going to cause a problem. No, at the end of the day, I can settle it. Right now, I can settle $100 billion worth of value in 10 minutes. I don't have to worry about transporting the gold. I don't have to worry about securing the gold. I don't have to worry about none of that. I can transfer the value in 10 minutes. So central banks will move and utilize Bitcoin as a base layer asset. And then on top of that, you could use, for example, US dollars, pounds, just like how it was. You had US dollars that were backed 40% by gold, right? So the US dollars were traveling and being used on top of the gold. So gold is the base layer and the US dollars were on top of that. You can do that with Bitcoin right now. The inefficiencies of gold are huge as well, right? Like I can't carry this much gold around and spend it. What am I going to do? Shave a little bit off to buy shit with it? That doesn't make any sense. We need something of the future. Gold bugs have been sold a lie that keeps them in the past, thinking that going backwards is the only way to go forwards. And that's not true. This is not true at all. And I want to implore you to understand that the lies that you have been told about gold are dangerous to your wealth and the wealth of the people that you are trying to protect, because I understand the intention. The intention is all this money is being printed. I need to protect the value that I'm earning. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a businessman, I'm a teacher, I'm a mom, I'm a father. I need to protect the value. I get it. But gold is not what we have been promised. And the gold bugs are incentivized to continue telling you this so that they can continue selling you the gold at a marked up premium. Whereas with Bitcoin, whether you are a multi-billionaire like Michael Saylor, a millionaire like me, or a street sweeper, we can all buy the same asset without a crazy premium attached to it. And that is the first time in human history that this is possible. And I hope that I've woken up the gold bugs, and I want you to please share this video with the gold bugs. I want you to please subscribe to the channel, because if you subscribe to the channel, YouTube realizes and Twitter realizes that more people need to see this, and they send it to the right people. And we really have to start saving the gold bugs, because they're being captured by the gold promoters for profit. We've got to start saving them. Bitcoin is a revolutionary asset, and they're not understanding it. This is extremely important to get this message out there, because there are millions of people just like my parents who were brought up on the idea of I need to save in gold. We are not going to take a step backwards to try and move forwards when there is a beautiful new technology called Bitcoin. It is something very important that you need to learn about. If this is the first time you're even thinking about it, take the time and learn about Bitcoin, because it actually fulfills the promises that the gold bugs and the gold promoters wrote on the check for gold, which gold cannot cash out. It is the future, and it's important for you to understand it. Despite all of that, whether you do or do not, there are still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.